Okay, what else does the security market line tell us? So we can basically place all company stocks somewhere along this line. This is the correct pricing. So the price per share of stock is correctly reflecting the like the combination of risk and return that you will be getting when you buy the stock. So what else can we say about this line? All the securities that you see, so let's say the risk-free asset, the market portfolio, stock I, stock J, stock K, and so on, they all have the same slope. Kind of pretty obvious, right? Along the same line, the slope is the same. The slope of the security market line at any point is the so-called reward to risk ratio. So we are saying that the slope being the reward to risk ratio is the same. What do you mean by the reward to risk ratio? Let's imagine this triangle. On the left, it starts at the risk-free return. Then one side of it is the diagonal side of this right triangle, which kind of goes along the security market line. And then let's say, we pick some stock, let's say stock J. So from point J, we go straight down and then straight to the left so that we have this, right angle, 90-degree angle. And so the third line, it kind of ends where we started, at the risk-free rate. So we have the so-called right triangle with a 90-degree angle, and the diagonal side across the right angle being basically part of the security market line. So what is the slope of the security market line, which is kind of the corner where we started at the risk-free rate? By definition, it's rise over run. Rise, the vertical side on the right, divided by run, the flat horizontal side of this triangle. What is the run? The run is basically the risk, right? Because we're measuring the amount of beta. So it's the beta for this company J, which we use to draw this triangle. What is the rise of this right triangle? It's what we call the reward, the risk premium for firm J stock, the return above the return for the risk-free asset, the difference, right? The expected return on firm J stock minus the risk-free return. Okay, so the slope of this right triangle is rise, or the reward, or the risk premium, divided by the run, which is the risk, or the beta. And because at any point of along this line, so we can start not at the risk-free asset at which we measure the slope, but at the market portfolio point or stock I point, and so on. But at any point, the slope is the same, which means every point, every stock along this line has the same reward to risk ratio. So for example, we could draw a triangle which starts at the risk-free rate and then ends at point M, and then goes straight down to form the right angle. Or it starts at the risk-free asset, goes diagonally along the security market line and stops at point I and then goes straight down, or point K. So all these triangles will have the same slope. And you can kind of think of this whole slope being the same like intuitively. What does it mean? It means that for any stock, for an additional amount of beta, the required additional risk premium is always the same amount. For example, if the beta doubles, the risk premium also doubles, right? So you double the risk, you double the reward. Let's look at this example. Consider an asset with a beta of 1.2, a risk-free rate of 5%, and a market risk premium of 8%. Question number 1. What is the required return on the asset? Question number 2. What is the reward to risk ratio for this asset? Let's start with question number 1. What is the required return on the asset? This is, the CAPM formula. So first, let's put everything we are given on our CAPM graph. We have the risk-free rate of 5%. That's the vertical intercept of the security market line. We have the market portfolio, kind of always by default, with a beta of 1 and some expected return. And we have our asset with a beta of 1.2, which means our asset is further up along the security market line, beyond the market portfolio point. So we place the beta of 1.2. And now let's use the CAPM formula, which says risk-free rate plus beta multiplied by, open parenthesis, expected return on the market portfolio minus the risk-free rate, close parenthesis. The risk-free rate is 5% or 0.05 in decimals. The beta is 1.2, it's given, and we multiply that by 0.08. So why did I not subtract the risk-free rate of 5%? Because the market risk premium is the difference between the expected return on the market and the risk-free rate. So we are given the entire term in the parentheses in our formula, rather than just one part of it, the expected return on the market. So wording is important. Market risk premium is not the same thing as the expected return on the market. The expected return on the market is E and in the brackets RM. The market risk premium is E in the brackets RM minus RF. So market risk premium of 8% is the number for the entire parenthesis term in our CAPM formula. When we do the math, we get 14.6%, and we can label our expected return for this stock on, on this CAPM graph. And then we have the second question that needs to be answered. What is the reward to risk ratio for this asset? Let's calculate the reward. Let's calculate the risk and then divide the reward by risk, which will give us the reward to risk ratio. What is the reward? Reward is basically the risk premium. So we take the return we calculated from step 1 and we subtract the risk-free rate of 5%. So the risk premium, which is the reward, equals 14.6% minus 5%, which gives 9.6%. And on the graph, that's the distance between the expected return on our stock and the 5% risk-free rate along the vertical axis. Now let's calculate the risk. Risk, by definition, is nothing but beta. No need to calculate anything. The beta is given, 1.2. Okay? Reward to risk ratio is reward divided by risk. So we take 9.6% and divide by 1.2, and we get 8%. Now, notice something interesting. We were given the market risk premium of 8%, and we have just calculated the reward to risk ratio for our asset, which also equals 8%. Is that a coincidence? No, because the reward to risk ratio for the market portfolio is the reward for the market, which is given 8% risk premium, divided by the beta for the market. What is the beta for the market? It's always 1. So 8% divided by 1 is 8% reward to risk ratio. In other words, the market risk premium is the same thing as the reward to risk ratio for the market portfolio. And so technically, you don't even need to calculate anything to answer question 2, because the reward to risk ratio is the same for all assets line on the security market line. We had it on one of our last few slides. And so because the market risk premium is the same thing as the reward to risk ratio for the market portfolio, you could take this 8% and use it for your answer to question number 2. No need to calculate the reward for our stock, the risk for it, and then take the ratio. It will always equal the reward to risk ratio for the market or the market risk premium.